Initially, he noticed the roses were trampled on. The subsequent day, he observed two unfamiliar youngsters strolling down the road. The street consisted of only 7 houses, and all the residents were acquainted with one another. Around 8 p.m., as darkness began to envelop the surroundings, sporadic power outages occurred. After a few instances of fluctuation, the power was eventually restored. At approximately 8:20 p.m., a knocking at his front door was heard. He proceeded to illuminate his porch and glance through the peephole, only to be confronted with utter darkness, despite the light being switched on. A sense of intense fear inexplicably seized him. "Who's there?" he inquired. A youthful voice replied, "Apologies for the disturbance, sir, but we find ourselves lost and in need of borrowing your phone." He extended the offer of a spare cell phone and suggested his willingness to step outside with it. However, the response he received was disconcerting. "No. You must allow me inside immediately." The individual initiated a forceful pounding on his door, displaying an intensity far surpassing what one would expect from a child. In a stern tone, he cautioned, "Young one, you cease that at once. I possess a shotgun, and any sign of aggression will be met with a forceful response." Yet, the voice persisted, crying out, "Permit me entry now. You are making a grave error." With caution, he firmly gripped the shotgun, keeping it close to his side, and proceeded to unlock the door. To his astonishment, he was confronted by two figures, both appearing to be 12 or 13 years of age, yet their eyes were wholly black. An overwhelming surge of terror gripped him once again. A perplexing impulse to lower his shotgun and invite them inside overcame him. The taller of the two began to advance. Propelled by a surge of adrenaline, he forcefully slammed the door shut and secured the lock. In response, their cries and screams took on a distorted, high-pitched quality, followed by a vehement pounding on his door. By the time he confirmed the security of his back door and returned to the front, they had vanished. He had just encountered the infamous Black-Eyed Kids, BEK. This account was recounted in April 2014 in Cullman, Alabama, USA. Though more frequently reported in the USA, the BEK phenomenon spans the globe. From the many accounts shared, here are the characteristics of the BEKs. Foremost, their defining feature is entirely black eyes, devoid of whites or irises. They are often depicted as having pallid skin and donning outdated or drab attire. Some individuals have reported detecting scents of sulfur, mold, or death in their presence. They often manifest in pairs, with one speaking and the other maintaining silence. Their speech is frequently peculiar, as though it isn't their native language. Typically, their ages span from 6 to 16 years. In select accounts, they are described as having talon-like extremities rather than conventional legs. A notable feature is their plea for assistance, involving requests for permission to enter a house, often to use the phone, or a vehicle for transportation. Those who have encountered BEKs frequently describe an intense feeling of dread and fear, akin to being stalked by a predator. Domesticated animals, including dogs and cats, react with extreme unease, either fleeing in fear or attempting to repel them through barking or hissing. They appear to possess the ability to perceive the thoughts of others and provide answers to unspoken queries. At times, they appear to exert mental control or influence over their victims. Episodes of blackouts and power outages often coincide with their presence, hinting at their potential to manipulate or disrupt electrical devices. Remarkably, these children seem to possess an ethereal nature. For instance, they can materialize and vanish at will, leaving no footprints, and appear unaffected by temperature changes. In many of the accounts, the experiencers refused to grant them entry, but there were a select few instances where the experiencers had given permission for the BEKs to enter their house. I will be presenting two accounts in this video, along with the consequences that followed. The initial incident unfolded on a snowy night, around 2 a.m., within a remote dwelling in Vermont. Two youngsters, a boy and a girl who both appeared to be about 8 years old, appeared at the house, asserting that their parents would soon join them and requesting entry. Their attire was quite peculiar, and their haircuts were odd. Despite the children avoiding direct eye contact and them feeling uneasy, the woman and her husband welcomed the children into their home and offered them warm beverages. Subsequently, the children sought permission to use the restroom. In a sudden turn of events, the woman's husband began experiencing unexpected nosebleeds, a condition he rarely encountered. Shortly thereafter, a power outage occurred, plunging the house into darkness. During this moment, the woman discovered the children standing motionless in the hallway. They then informed her that their parents had arrived and left. Outside the house, the woman noticed two tall figures clad entirely in black, standing by a vintage vehicle, strikingly similar to what is frequently described in Men in Black encounters. In the aftermath, her husband's health deteriorated, marked by persistent nosebleeds and the onset of skin cancer, an affliction he had not previously suffered from. The woman herself recounted suffering from recurring nosebleeds, bouts of dizziness, and other unexplained maladies that left her in a distressing state without an apparent cause. Additionally, 3 out of their 4 pet cats disappeared, while the 4th was found deceased in the kitchen, exhibiting signs of hemorrhaging. The symptoms they experienced bear a striking resemblance to moonburn syndrome, often reported by individuals who claim encounters with unidentified flying objects, UFOs, suggesting a possible form of radiation sickness. In a second encounter, a man was seated in his bedroom at home when a knock on the door caught his attention. Since it wasn't too late, he didn't hesitate to open the door to whoever it might be. 2 children stood before him, both with their gazes lowered. The taller one inquired if they could enter, explaining that they were lost and the other boy needed to use the restroom. Given that he lived in an area where getting lost was common, he assumed their story was genuine. He granted them entry and welcomed them inside. The boy in need of the restroom proceeded directly upstairs, as if familiar with the layout. He guided the other child down the hallway to the phone. "Thank you," the child replied, pausing near the phone. A sudden wave of dread washed over him. When the child looked up at him and he finally glimpsed the darkness of their eyes, he was overwhelmed by fear. He turned to escape down the hall, only to find the other child standing at the end. The approaching child informed him that they had been sent to retrieve him. He pushed away, rushed into the front room, and slammed the door shut. After spending about an hour pressed against the door, he mustered the courage to dash for the back door. Unlocking it, he raced to the rear of the garden and leaped over the fence without looking back. Seeking refuge at his friend's house nearby, he persuaded his friend to accompany him back to his house. Upon arrival, they thoroughly searched the entire premises but found no trace of the children. Since that incident, he has been haunted by dreams in which these black-eyed children loom over his bed, their hands reaching out towards him. Most of the time, BEKs seek out their victims, but here is an intriguing account of an individual who attempted to locate a BEK and his subsequent experience. This individual read the online stories and articles about BEKs just like everyone else, but he didn't share the same deep-rooted reaction that many others had when reading about them. So, he embarked on a quest to meet a BEK to prove that there was nothing to fear. He began by posting an anonymous ad on Craigslist. The ad read, "Black-eyed kids. I am not afraid of you. I want to meet you. 9 p.m., Wednesday. The park bench on the corner of 3rd and Washington. Show me why I'm wrong and why I should be afraid." The bench was only about a block from his apartment, so every Wednesday, he would walk down there to see if anyone or anything would show up. Despite encountering a few occasional perverts and teenagers joking around, nothing noteworthy occurred. After 6 months, he stopped posting the ad. The week he decided to stop, he heard a knock on his door. He was sitting on his couch, and it was a little after 9 p.m. He didn't know how to explain it, but the moment he heard that knock, his skin went ice cold. He didn't even need to get up. He knew who it was, and he was already terrified. He had been wrong about not being afraid of the BEKs. The fear he felt was on a different level, an instinctual, primal level. Despite this, he managed to gather his courage and open the door. There stood a kid, approximately 9 years old, with olive skin, dark hair, and solid black eyes, staring up at him. "Can I come in?" the kid said. He was left speechless. After what felt like an eternity, he managed to respond with a firm no and began closing the door. "We missed you at the park tonight," the boy said. The realization struck him, they had been watching him. The boy smiled at him, and he struggled to move his arm, pushing the door closed and locking it. As soon as he shut the door, he gasped for air, realizing he had been holding his breath. He sat back against the wall, his gaze fixed on the closed door. Knock, knock, knock. The presence was still there. It took him at least an hour to muster the strength to move from that spot. He didn't sleep that night or the next, and he eventually collapsed with exhaustion at his work desk. He was awakened minutes later by a nightmare memory of the boy. He now deliberately avoids that corner park bench, choosing to walk an extra 3 blocks rather than pass by it. Who are these BEKs? The origins of black-eyed kids have spurred numerous theories, and among them, several intriguing possibilities emerge. To begin with, BEKs might be associated with vampires. One experiencer, Ezekiel Finch, encountered BEKs on 2 occasions, one in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and another in an undisclosed medium-sized city on the East Coast. During these encounters, he noted the cold weather and observed that while humans typically emit visible breath in cold conditions, the BEKs did not, hinting at their lack of breath and therefore their undead nature. Finch also highlighted the BEKs' practice of seeking permission for entry, a trait commonly attributed to vampires. Another theory posits that BEKs could be a result of ET-human hybridization. In the context of alien abductions, such as those involving greys, reports often mention the extraction of human sperm or eggs. As gray aliens are said to possess solid black eyes, the notion arises that BEKs could be a hybrid species resulting from the merging of human DNA with alien genetics. Notably, BEKs exhibit behavior patterns akin to Men in Black (MIB), extraterrestrial operatives known for their peculiar clothing, speech difficulties, and psychic abilities. A third hypothesis proposes a connection between BEKs and fairy beings. While green and red are more frequently linked with fairy folk, black has occasionally been associated with them. Black, generally regarded as an ominous color, historically symbolized a death omen when observed on fairies. Fairies, although capable of assuming human forms, often harbor a unique characteristic that unsettles their guise. Hence, black eyes in BEKs could potentially be a manifestation of this peculiar trait. Encounters with BEKs often lead individuals to describe feeling drained, as if their life force has been extracted. Various types of fairies are known to feed on human life energy, like the Scottish Beaban Sith, who consume blood or hearts, and goblins, occasionally depicted as draining human vitality. The Irish Leannan Sea, known as fairy lovers, are said to deplete the life force of their human companions until their demise. Furthermore, it's intriguing that a significant number of BEK encounters occur between midnight and sunrise, a timeframe associated with heightened fairy activity. A fourth theory proposes that BEKs are either demonic entities or thought forms summoned through the rituals of black magicians as part of the Illuminati experiment to obstruct humanity's spiritual enlightenment. The objective of this endeavor wasn't solely to possess individuals, but to create a public spectacle designed to instill fear among the masses. The distinctive black eyes of BEKs could be attributed to the belief that eyes serve as windows to the soul. As BEKs lack a soul, their eyes manifest as dark voids. What are your thoughts on the identity of BEKs? Feel free to share your insights in the comments below.